First of all, hi Casey, how's it going?
It's going well. Enjoying the Netherlands over here.
Your first time?
No, we've been over here once before, I believe, a few years ago with Yellow Card and Saves the Day.
Okay.
So this is our second time here, yeah.
Before we talk about the record, I'd like to go back to the beginning for a while.
Okay.
Do you remember the first album that you bought?
I'm sorry?
The first album that you bought?
The first album that I bought, wow. Well, you know, actually, I think the first CD, I had a bunch of cassette tapes, but I'll go to the first CD, not that I bought, but ironically enough, was actually a gift, was a Bush record, believe it or not. I think it was 16 Stone.
Who gave it to you?
That was a present, so that was the first record that I ever tangibly owned in CD format. The first one I bought was probably either Green Day, Kerplunk, or I think Offspring Smash, actually, yeah.
Yeah, why these two records?
You know, I would, in the age of like record stores that would have in the employee like top 10 list or whatever, the local record store by me had kind of a, you know, like a top 40 list on the wall, and I think the Offspring record I know was on there at the time that it came out. I was curious. I think I probably asked the guy about it, and he said, "Just buy it, trust me." And that was kind of the launching point for a bunch of other records in that world. So.
Yeah, what was your impression of the album?
I mean, obviously positive, as sitting here at Warped Tour in Europe. I loved it. Those two records. I mean, obviously Green Day has a long history in that, and that was one of their first records. And then shortly thereafter, obviously Dookie was a huge influence to an entire generation of kids just like me, and I loved it. It had a lot of high energy and a lot of octave chords, and just had a lot of fast-paced stuff that just got me pumped up, got me amped. So at that time when I was a young kid, that's what you want to hear. You want to run around and go nuts. So that's pretty much it.
Well, you describe it as your launching point. You described it as your launching point, the first record.
Yeah.
Yeah, had you been listening to that upbeat or up-bass rock music before you bought that album?
It was funny. When I was a real little kid, my dad was into classic rock a lot. A lot of old school, everything from Zeppelin to the Allman Brothers. So I listened to that. He played me those records when I was a real little kid. I'd go through their vinyl collection and just put stuff on. Half of them were so old that they were scratched up that you almost couldn't hear it and the needle would skip. So those were some of the first things that I listened to, was just stuff that I heard my dad playing, obviously. But it wasn't until that I bought that record that I started actually listening to punk rock and got into that on my own and started finding my own music in the new era.
Was it this at the same point that you picked up the guitar?
Yeah. It was actually, honestly, it was probably a little before. I think my dad probably we had like a really old beat up acoustic that barely played, but I would mess around with that and learn like random Beatles songs, Day Tripper, some of the Zeppelin stuff, some just like Bob Dylan chord stuff, and play along with that. But yeah, then when I got that Offspring record and Green Day record, obviously that's when I started, just learning simple power chord stuff and playing along to those records, and so that's when I really started picking up and started playing the guitar more. Started trying to write my own, my own chord progressions, my own guitar riffs that based on that stuff that I was hearing on those new records. So, yeah.
Yeah. Was it around this time that music became serious for you? That more than just something you do in your room, but something with an ambition behind it?
You know, I mean, at that point, you know, I started playing other instruments, started playing trombone, started messing around with piano a little bit. But it probably wasn't until, I think every kid, when they're young and starts a band, even in the back of your head, you kind of look at the bands that you're influenced by and that you listen to all the time, and everybody has, you know, has a thought like, wow, that would be really cool to be up there and be able to play your own songs and have people admire the songs that you create. But I don't think it probably wasn't until a little bit later, probably middle school or high school, when our bass player and I started playing in a band that did ska-punk covers, covering everything from Five Iron Frenzy to Less Than Jake, Supertones, and then that band ended up starting to write a few original songs as well. So that was when I started, you know, probably started looking at it as, wow, maybe this is something that can continue and grow and progress. And that was long before the Wonder Years.
When then did the Wonder Years became involved?
And then towards the end, we all graduated from high school, so we were probably 17, 18 years old, had all played in other bands together in the area. And honestly, it was really just our collective appreciation for punk rock and pop punk music and sharing so many similar influences in that genre that we all said, hey, why don't we, you know, start something a little bit more along these lines, and that's where it started. And that was 8 years ago, and it's grown to the point that I'm sitting here talking with you with Warped Tour, which we know it as an American festival institution, but over here in Europe. So, yeah.